I just want you to know before I start that all of the speakers that I've heard this morning are really going to echo pretty much everything that I have to tell you, and it really reminds me of a biblical verse and a thought, an end-time thought actually, where everything's wrong, everything that's wrong is right, and everything that's right is wrong. It just seems so odd that we would be fighting our own Republicans as we go through these legislative sessions where they keep promoting a larger and bigger government, and we keep trying to stop that, and it's very frustrating. As a matter of fact, I was called a union thug just recently. I'll explain that more later. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Me, a union thug. Okay. We're going to talk about the Common Core state standards. I'm going to go through them really quickly, but I want to preface my talk with this. If we don't stop this year, guys, this will become Medicare. Okay? This is supposed to be fully implemented by 2014, and if this doesn't stop this year, it will become Medicare. All right? I have got the picture of Locutus of Borg up at the top because I am a nerd, and because I thought it worked beautifully. We are going to be assimilated if we're not careful, and we as Christians had better not. All right. I want to talk just a little bit about the origin. Where did these things come from? Well, they were actually developed by a group of individuals, the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers, both, by the way, which are organizations that are private in nature, and you have to be a member to be in these organizations, and yet they're creating standards, national standards. I hope that causes you to think just a little bit about that. All right. In 2008, and this is the really odd part for me, we have Republicans pushing the Obama administration education reform plan. Go figure that. Wouldn't you think, oh my gosh, it's the Obama administration, I'm a Republican, even just partisanly, I should not be involved. However, that's not the case. And not only that, in 2008, the Obama administration created a little thing that they called Race to the Top, because everybody loves a race. We're Americans. We have to win at everything, right? So they gave away stimulus funds if you could win this competition, but the little thing about this competition is you had to do 4 things for them. One of them was to turn around failing schools, one was to implement Common Core state standards, one was to collect data on every school child in your entire state over the course of their lives, and the other one was to teacher leadership effectiveness, to make sure that we were constantly sticking our teachers to be making sure that they were doing what the government wants them to do. All right, in Oklahoma, Clark Jolly, you haven't heard of his name before, Clark Jolly was one of the principal authors of the bill that put the Common Core state standards into law in 2009. Why? To get money from the federal government. Because if you've ever heard a Republican talk, they will say, well, it's our money. Don't you want to get it back? No, I don't want it to go out in the first place. Don't take it from me in the first place. Is that so hard to understand? I don't get that. At any rate, so that's exactly what they did. They produced a bill which would allow us to, they put the Common Core state standards and all these other reforms into law so that we could get Race to the Top money. About 30-some people started out, 30-some states started out trying to get Race to the Top funds. There are now 45 involved in that. I think the interesting thing about this is twofold. Number one, Oklahoma got no money, but we're stuck with the standards. And number two is these people, our Republicans, wrote and passed a bill before the standards were even available for review. Isn't that a little like Nancy Pelosi? Well, we got to read it to find what's in it. Okay? Now, here's a huge problem. This is the first problem. This is full of corporate incest. I mean, Achieve, which is one of the groups that actually puts forth a lot of this and pays for a lot of this, was formed by the NGO and the CCO, and then Achieve creates a company called America's Choice, and then Pearson buys America's Choice, and then Pearson and America's Choice create all these programmings and services in order to be able to help schools compete for Race to the Top grants and then implement the educational reforms. Wow, that's interesting. Kind of looks like this. Does this remind you of the healthcare law? Okay, it took Lynn and I, one of our board members, something like 2 days to put this together. And that was like 24/7 for 2 days. The red is money. Do you see a problem with that? The green is data. You see a problem with that? So what's this about? Education reform or collecting data? Just curious. All right, what about the cost? Initially, our superintendent says, oh, you know, the cost, we just anticipate they're going to be low. Well, as we've moved through this, you'll find that of the 45 states that implemented the Common Core curriculum, you have at least 12 states right now that are running bills in their legislature trying to stop it or gut it at some point in time. Why? The standards aren't very good and they cost a lot. Well, what is it that actually costs a lot of money about it? Well, if you have outcome-based education, anybody remember that? And I'll bet you every hand goes up in here because you all know about outcome-based education. This is what that is. You have to take a test to make them learn, right? So we have a little thing called PARCC testing, which is what is supposed to be able to test the Common Core state standards. Well, the beauty of this is because we have to have rigor and we have to make sure that all kids are learning, this is adaptive testing. We can't do it on paper and pencil anymore. That's completely in the past. That's old school. We have it on computer and it's adaptive testing. So they answer one question and then the computer goes to the next part. It's very exciting. Well, the problem is, think about a lot of these rural schools that don't even have internet yet. How's that going to happen? I mean, do we have an internet ferry that comes down? Oh, yes, we do. It's called taxpayers. Okay? Just wanted to let you know. All right. As a matter of fact, what's happened is, as PARCC has gone around and said, well, you need to have this, and you need to have this, and you need to have this in order to be able to get your kids to take those tests, the schools are going, are you kidding me? The state's not giving them any money. Janet Barisi can't give them any money because she said what? I anticipate low costs. Make her look really bad if she had to actually do that, although she's already put 1.28 million in the budget for technology costs. Okay, that's an extra in the budget for technology costs. Now see, if I said technology costs, you would go, oh well, technology, that's for computers. No, that's specifically for computers to take the PARCC tests for the Common Core state standards. That's what the technology term means, okay? All right, so schools aren't receiving funding, so what are they going to do? Has anybody ever heard of something called eRate? Yes? eRate is, you know how you pay your cell phone bill and you're going, why am I paying 14 bucks in taxes on my cell phone bill? It's because, let me see, isn't there something called income redistribution in America? Isn't that what we were founded on? Yeah. No? Oh, you're laughing. So no? Yeah, well, eRate is income distribution through your phone bill. You're lucky enough to own a phone bill that wasn't given to you by the Obama administration. Well, then you have to pay. They take a chunk of the money away from you that you pay your bill and they give it to these schools. It's all under civil rights legislation, civil rights ideals that, you know, schools out in the boondocks need to have, you know, internet just like everybody else. So they take your money and redistribute it to other people. So schools then apply for eRate bonds. There's a guy named Joe Kitchens who's superintendent of Western Heights. We made a big deal out of a national article he was in Ed Week where he said, oh my gosh, well we just don't have enough money to pay for all this technology stuff for these Common Core tests. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply for, get this, $450,000 of eRate bonds. Okay, so eRate grants, $450,000. Oh, that's not going to be enough. We're going to continue to soak the taxpayers, because don't forget the eRate money came from a tax, right? So we're going to soak the taxpayers a little more by shoving a bond issue at you. So we'll raise your property taxes to put technology into the schools so that we can have it available for these PARCC tests so that we can use outcome-based education on your kids. Doesn't that sound like a plan? I'm so excited about that. Wow. I mean, it's going along like clockwork, but the problem is we need to throw a little something in that clock because that's not what we need to be doing, okay? And the whole idea that we're going to raise bonds to do this should make you madder than heck because you're already paying 100 times now for education. So let's just stop it. So now that you're up on all of that, go back to your counties and say, guess what? We're not doing any school bonds. We're not doing any because the Bible says we shouldn't be doing it anyway. The Bible says that debt is bad. Isn't that a shocker that we haven't heard that lately? But that's true, and school bonding is bad. It is bad. It puts you in debt because it comes off of your property tax. So let's stop that. Okay, so never mind all this problem with, are they effective? I mean, so you might want to swallow your pride a little bit maybe if they were effective. Well, guess what? They're not even effective anyway. Numerous math experts have complained that the standards are out of context for grades. We're pushing things too early when kids aren't ready, developmentally ready for them, and yet we keep moving on. There's supposed to be college readiness standards, and I loved, this was a quote I pulled out because I like this one. College readiness standards do not point to a level of intellectual achievement that signifies readiness for authentic college level work. At best, they point to no more than readiness for a high school diploma. Boy, that sure does throw a little wrench in that wheel that Janet Breese is grinding. College ready. We have to have all of our kids to be college ready. Have you ever thought about that? I'm getting off topic. Oh my gosh, I am my pastor. Okay. But have you ever thought about that college ready thing? I have a 29-year-old child, okay? My kid in high school was coming home to me going, I can't believe that my history teacher put up a picture of Bill Clinton in my room, in the history room. She was all really hacked off about it, very upset. She was always a pretty conservative kid. Well, so she goes off to UCO. Oh, well, you know, I just think Barack Obama is the greatest guy ever. Really? Didn't learn that at home. Where did that come from? So don't you think it's interesting that these people are pushing college? What happens at college? If you really want to read the research, nothing more than a high school diploma. But oh my gosh, they sure do learn a lot about the world, don't they? And it ain't nothing that you want to be teaching them. But it's great for all this big government stuff. So I want you to think about that. So what about college ready standards? I'm teaching my kid to weld. Oh my God. You set foot inside of a college and I'm going to drag you back by your ear. Get out there and weld. I mean, let's really think about what makes sense, okay? All right. Not only that, but has anybody ever heard of constructivism? Constructivism is the term imparted by John Dewey. He was the one that started this whole descent into the madness of what is now government schools. He loved constructivist theory. He's really the father of constructivist education theory. What is that? No teachers are necessary. You just put some little kids together in a room, they'll teach each other. I swear they will. Yeah, right. I have a kid who's 8 who can't even put his shirt on right. Really? I'm like, honey, have you figured out yet that the tag goes in the back? I mean, I'm not getting this. So they're going to sit together in a room and come up with, you know, the next great economic theory? No way. That's what teachers are for. That's what parents are for. This whole thing that kids need to be, you know, we have all these stages of, you know, adulthood. No, we don't. They're all kids until they're 18. Shut up and do what I say. I don't see what the problem is with that. It boils down to everything very easily, makes everything easy, okay? All right, now, constructivist math is so desperately difficult. What they try to do is they try to make it easy by parsing it out. So a problem that would take really 2 steps, they give it 4 steps because they're convinced the kids can't get it in 2 steps. Okay, if you've never seen this before, trust me, it is the most frustrating thing you've ever seen. One of the reasons my kids are all home is because of constructivist math. We use Saxon. Okay, now what about the English standards? Well, the National Council of English Teachers has said this document claims to be evidence-based, but we note that none of the evidence has been drawn from peer-reviewed research journals or similar sources, but mainly consists of surveys done by testing companies. Wow, okay. So is this for kids? No, it doesn't sound like it to me. It sounds like we're making so many money on the side, doesn't it? Okay, English is important. Isn't that a shocker? So we need to make sure that our kids are getting good English. Really, these standards are not up to par for a lot of different states. It eliminates cursive. It eliminates a lot of the fiction reading because we're not going to be reading fiction anymore. We need to make sure that we're reading informative texts. These are like documents from www.gov. Okay, government documents. Wow, that's interesting. No room for indoctrination there. Okay, science. I have to read you this part. The science standards are so awful that even some of the slobbering apologists for Common Core have come out and gone, we need to scrap this and start over. But this is my favorite quote from Robert Scott, who used to be the education commissioner in Texas, who I recently met Julie, and I recently met him, and he was a hoot. And here's what he said. There's a section of the proposed standards called modeling. The only discernible standard I could find was the student will be able to use graphs, for example, graphs of CO2 emissions and global temperatures over time. The joke was, what do we call this class? Do we call it global warming math? All right, who are some of the detractors, again, besides Rope, against the Common Core state standards? Heritage Foundation, Friedman Foundation, Goldwater Institute, Cato Institute, National Council of Teachers of English, United States Coalition for World-Class Math. Sounds like there's some pretty big guns against it. Why does it keep moving forward? Well, that's a good question. Do you know that our own OCPA here in Oklahoma City, a conservative organization, will not help us come out against the Common Core state standards? I think that's a problem. All right, local control. Republicans, conservatives are for local control of education. Where is government best? At the local level. Government always helps better right outside your front door than down the block and to the right, right? We need to keep it local. Well, so do the Common Core standards that the Republicans are pushing impart local control? Well, let's see. They're copyrighted. There is a public use permit. However, the copyright actually prevents the standards from being used, from detracted. You can't, if you're going to use the standards, you can't take anything out. And if you're a local school district that wants to take a little bit of control, you're only given 15% to add. Wow, that sounds like local control to me, 15%. I'll take 15% liberty, please. Who says that? Nobody. So that's just crazy. So here's the thing, and here's where I've said, so think about it. The National Governors Association, the Council of Chief School Officers are the ones that wrote it. All these companies, Pearson, Achieve, all these big, the Gates Foundation, all of these companies are pushing this stuff, right? Okay, so they go into schools, every school, into the states that have adopted them. Does a local school board have control? How can they? The standards weren't even written there. Well, but they'll say, well, Jenny, you can't say that because there's 15% in there. Really? 15%? That's awesome. I should shut up and go away. What am I thinking? But here's the thing. They will tell you that, but you have to be able to make sure that you're passing the test as a school. And we'll talk about this in a minute. If you can't get in all the necessary information you have to pass the test as a school, as a grade, what about the 15%? There's no time for that 15% because you've got to pass the test. All right, we just talked about that. They originate outside the state by individuals from many states who work together. It's kind of like what we were just talking about, the committee that's put together to decide what bills go to the floor. Yeah, okay. We definitely don't want any accountability. But don't they preach accountability all the time? Well, this doesn't make any sense. See what I'm saying? All right, school boards can't change them. And here's the thing. If they were to change the standards to work for the school, they'd fail the PARCC tests. If the school fails the test, their A through F rating will drop. They could become a D or an F school. If they do, then they become a needs improvement school. If they become a needs improvement school, the State Department of Education, because of the NCLB waiver that our governor and our state superintendent, Janet Barisi, asked for and took, against, by the way, there were more comments against the waiver than there were for the waiver, and they did it anyway. But that's because the Foundation for Educational Excellence, Jeb Bush's organization, wrote them for us, for her. We'll talk about that more if I've got time. All right, so through the waiver then, the Department of Education can take over your school and then put in a contractor to run your school. Oh my gosh, that sounds like local control to me. Now that I'm saying it, it makes so much sense. Really, seriously, what is local control about that? There's none there. All right, so what about this? They say, oh, but they're voluntary. Your state can adopt them or not. Did anybody know they were being adopted in Oklahoma? Raise your hand. Did you know? Not one hand? Seriously? That's a shocker. Oh, you did? Where were you? Come on. Seriously, they ended up happening and nobody even knew they were there. How are they voluntary? They weren't voluntary for us. They were voluntary for people who wrote the bill to put them into law without reading them. Go figure. All right. Well, you offer cash-strapped states money to do stuff. How's that voluntary? Because you know they're going to take it. Okay, so you work with international book and testing companies such as Pearson and Achieve and then incorporate everything into the resource materials. What do you have left to teach? It's all Common Core. Creating tests for Common Core that will be used to grade schools. How's that voluntary? You can't even opt out of the PARCC tests as a school. How's that voluntary? Changing college entrance exams to align with the CCS. They're changing the SAT now. And they're also changing the AP tests. And this is just exactly what I was going to say. So voluntary for whom? Who are these voluntary for? All right, choices? You have no choices. Come on here. Lots of our conservative friends like to tout choice in education. You've heard this, oh, we have to have choice in education. Let me ask you a question here. Think about this rationally. So every school in the state has to use Common Core state standards because if they don't use those and they take the tests and fail the test, their school is taken over by the State Department of Education, right? Are you following me? Okay, so how in the world then am I going to take my kid out and move him to another school and find any different situation? I mean, yeah, one school might be safer. There might be a teacher that he likes over here, but are they learning the same stuff? Absolutely. Why? Because you can't fit anything else in because there's not time for that. So where in the world are you striving for excellence here? This is not excellence at all. This is Dr. Seuss's Sneetches. You remember that? All of them had to look the same thing. You just pop them in a machine. They get the stars. That's what we got right here. So tell me, how is there choice in education? Did you know that private schools and charter schools are now going to the Common Core because of the SAT test? So I'm going to move my kid to a Catholic school. Okay, you just pay more money now because you're going to get the same thing at a Catholic school more than likely if they're preparing their kids for college and they want them to take the SAT. Is this bothering anybody? I want to hear some like, ugh. You know what I'm saying? This is not a good thing. All right. Now, how does this affect homeschoolers, as a matter of fact? Well, in Mardale one day, I ran into a whole display of Common Core books. And I thought, are you kidding me here? Well, it just hit me. Because we have free enterprise, which is a good thing, what's going to happen? Small book companies who can't have a market share are going to start sticking Common Core stuff in their books so they can get a share of the market. Pretty soon, we're overrun with Common Core. Now, where do you go to buy textbooks if you're a homeschooler? How are you going to take the SAT if you're not feeding your kids from the spoon of Common Core if you want them to do well on the SAT? You homeschoolers are in the bucket with everybody else. They are going to absolutely homogenize us all. Okay, in closing, Charlie Meadows talked the other day about the chamber. Well, here's something that cracks me up. The chamber touts all of this stuff because they want to have workers for the workforce. You go to the chamber website, the Oklahoma Chamber website, and you look. Education in the workforce they have, and this is what they talk about. We've got to educate our kids for the workforce. You want your kids sitting there? I don't. I mean, one of my kids wouldn't even sit there anyway, but I mean, I certainly don't want them, and I don't even like that color blue. I mean, let's be real. So, precisely, whoever said that, exactly, we're getting the idea here now. Okay, well, the chamber loves the Common Core because they get to go out and say, oh, well, we have these rigorous Common Core state standards. The next time you hear that out of them, you go, Well, isn't it strange that a bunch of other states have those too? So how are we any different than any place else? Where is the excellence in Oklahoma? How are we striving for excellence? We're not. We're striving to become a member of the Borg. That's what we are, a member of the little Borg collective. All right, so how are they going to, I mean, this is socialist. How really, or as a chamber member, are you going to sell this to people? Oh yeah, come here where we have the same educational standards 45 other states have. What? All right, I for one, this is me. I for one, that's on a good day. And you know what? This is what Republicans think of me, so it's probably pretty good. That's who I am right there. But I am bad. And I will fight the Common Core. They're not going to assimilate me. And I would hope that they're not going to assimilate you either. Thank you guys. If you have any questions, please come see me afterwards. We've got some, Julia C., who's on the member of our board, is here as well. She can answer any questions. Please help us fight this year. They must be stopped. Thank you. God bless you.